The information on this show has been provided by DETV, an independent company not affiliated with Barclays or any of Barclays' affiliates. Barclays makes no claims to the accuracy of the content, nor does it recommend or endorse any products or services that have been mentioned in the program. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or the positions of Barclays. Hi, I'm Danae Wolf. I went from being broke and getting evicted in my 20s to becoming a millionaire in my 30s. And here's the best part. It didn't happen because I got some windfall of cash. It didn't happen because I got a fancy new job. It happened because I started controlling my money and stopped letting it control me. I cracked the code on personal finance, and I'm on a mission to help as many people as possible have the same transformation. The truth is, it's not a lack of money that's keeping you broke, it's a lack of financial education. And that's why I'm doing this show, because I believe financial literacy is a right, not a privilege. So join me to learn how to increase your financial IQ so you can make and keep more money. Welcome to Money Matters. Hi, and welcome to episode 3 of Money Matters, where we dive into financial education, empowerment, and freedom. I'm your host and financial empowerment coach, Danae Wolf. In each episode of Money Matters, you're going to learn practical and tactical lessons that will show you exactly how to gain financial clarity and confidence so that you can increase your bank balance and decrease your stress. Now, today we're tackling a topic that everyone loves to hate, but everyone desperately needs. Yes, my friends, today we're talking about the B word, budgeting. But don't worry, I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step process to not only create a budget, but to make a budget that works for you. We're going to make sure that this is as painless as possible. Many people view budgeting as restrictive. They see it as a set of financial limits that control your spending. But this couldn't be further from the truth. In reality, a budget is simply a plan for how to spend your money. It doesn't limit your freedom. It actually enhances it. By allocating funds to necessary expenses, to savings, and even to your leisure activities, the budget simply ensures you're never lost financially. It gives you the freedom to spend confidently, knowing that each dollar has a purpose. I want you to think about your dollars as tiny soldiers. They're all marching into battle. Now, when you send them into battle, you need to make sure they have a purpose, right? You need to make sure they know what they're doing. Imagine if a bunch of soldiers ran into battle and had no clue what they were doing. It would be total chaos. That's not what we want for you. We want each one of your dollars to serve a purpose. This clarity prevents the stress of unplanned expenses and the strain of financial uncertainty. If you allow yourself to put a financial plan in place, you're going to see that a lot of your financial worry goes out the window. Think about it like this. You've all heard the saying, you can't get where you're going if you don't know where you've been. Well, what if you couldn't get where you're going because you didn't know where you were going? You're flying blind. You don't have any type of a plan or a mission in place. A budget will give you this. A budget will let you know exactly what your plan is. So I don't want you to think about the word budget. I want you to instead think about a plan. Today, we are going to create a financial plan so that you can have clarity, so that you can send your soldiers into battle knowing exactly what their mission is. If we're going to create a financial plan, we've got to know what we're working with. So step 1 is sitting down and calculating exactly how much money you bring home every single month. This is going to include your salary from a job any type of side hustles you have, any type of income stream, you want to make sure that you are calculating it. Now, if you are someone with a typical 9-to-5 job, I want you to make sure that you are calculating your net pay, all right? We're not going to be focused on our gross pay. We are calculating the money that actually gets deposited into our bank account. This is after you've paid any of your taxes and any of your deductions. Knowing your total income is really the cornerstone of smart budgeting. You can't create a financial plan without this first critical step. Now, I already know one of the questions that I always get asked when we do this, and it's for those of you who have income that fluctuates. Here's what I want you to do. When you are an individual whose income changes from month to month, it can be difficult to do step one, but here's the process for you to figure it out. I want you to look at the last calendar year. So I don't want you to look at the last 12 months. I want you to look at the last calendar year. So say all of 2023. And I want you to look at your total income and divide it by 12. That's going to tell you your average monthly income last year. Now, I want you to look at your average of this year. So you're going to go ahead and count all of the money you have made this year, which is 2024 at the time of filming this, and you're going to divide it by the number of months there have been so far in this year. Now you have your average of this year and your average of last year. If this year is wildly different from last year, use this one because it shows you where you're trending. But if they're very similar, go ahead and use last year because that shows the full 12 months. But that's the process you're going to do if you're someone whose income fluctuates. But for the rest of you, you're simply going to go into your bank account, look at all of your deposits, and determine what your typical monthly income is. Now that you have your average income, we're going to move on to step two. Step two is where you're going to calculate your monthly fixed expenses. These are costs that you have every single month that do not change. That's why we refer to them as fixed expenses. So any bill that you pay every single month and you pay the same exact amount, that is your fixed expense. This is rent, your car payment, your mortgage, your gym membership, any of those recurring expenses that are the same. I want you to put them all in a list. These are those expenses that you'll probably know right off the top of your head because they're repetitive. You pay them every single month. So I want you to first download what you've got right off the top of your head, but then go ahead and log into your bank account just to make sure you're not missing any. But I'm going to need you to compile a list of all of your fixed expenses that you pay each month. Once you've done that, you're ready to move on to step three. This is when you're going to calculate all of your variable expenses. Now, these are costs that you pay every month, but they fluctuate. So think about things like your electric bill. Maybe in the summer, it's a little bit more than it is in the winter. Think about your groceries, right? That bill fluctuates if maybe you ate out more one week than you did another week. Think about the gas for your car, if you drive more, if you drive less. These are all bills that you pay every single month, but they fluctuate. Now, tracking these can be really tricky, but just like we said what to do with your income if it fluctuates, we're going to follow the same approach with our variable expenses. So I want you to go ahead and look at your past 3 to 6 months. And you're going to look at each one of these variable expenses, and you are going to get the total for the last 3 months, and then you're going to divide it by 3. This is how you're going to get your average spend. So as an example, let's say your grocery bill is $500 in month 1, and then it is $500 in month 2 and $500 in month 3. Well, when you divide that by 3, you are averaging $500 in groceries. So you want to look at all of your variable expenses and calculate that average. This is going to give you a realistic view of what you can expect for these variable expenses. Now, once you've calculated your fixed expenses and your variable expenses, you're ready to move on to step 4, which is calculating your discretionary expenses. And what I love about the discretionary spending is it really gives you opportunity to adjust. Now, discretionary spending is all of the spending that you do at your own discretion. So what do I mean by that? Well, they're not bills that you need. They're not something like your rent or your car or your phone. This really tends to be the fun stuff. It's the non-essentials. It is your entertainment. It is your hobbies. It is eating out. These are all of those expenses that you chose to spend money on, right? We always have things we need to spend money on. We have to pay rent. We have to buy groceries. But the discretionary spending, that's the fun stuff. And what's really great about discretionary spending is this is where we have the most control. Adjusting your rent, gonna be hard. Is it impossible? No, but it's gonna be difficult. But adjusting your discretionary spending, it's fully in your control. This is one part of your finances where you should absolutely feel empowered, because this is where you have opportunity to cut back and redirect your money toward a different goal. So what I want you to do is really figure out what are your discretionary spending categories. So I want you to think about your life, and I want you to think about all the things you do that are not necessary. What are all the things you do because you enjoy them, because you want to do them? What are the fun things you do? And here's the thing, you really don't have to overthink this. Most of us, we know right away what we're spending money on that isn't necessary. So I want you to write down those categories. You might say fun things, you might say sporting events, you might say health and wellness. Determine your categories, and then I want you to look at the last 3 months. And we're gonna do the same exact process. You're gonna divide it by 3 and determine what your average is. You need to get to the average amount that you are spending each month on your discretionary spending. Once you calculate that, you are ready to move on to step 5. And this is debt payments. So this might apply to you or it might not, but most of us have credit card payments. So I want you to take a look at any credit cards you owe or any loans you have, and I want you to calculate what your monthly payment is, because we're going to want to make sure that we're aware of all of the payments we're making each month on any type of debt. Think credit cards, student loans, anything that you owe money. Now, these may adjust based on the type of agreement you have with the lender, or you might find that this is super easy to calculate because your payment is always the same. But there are a lot of debt payments that fluctuate. So if that is your situation, we're gonna follow our same system. We're gonna look at the last 3 months, divide by 3, and you're going to get your average. Now, once you've determined your debt payments, you're ready to move on to our final step, number 6, which is accounting for your annual expenses. So these are expenses that you don't owe every month, but you owe every year. And these pesky expenses always show up at the worst time, and we often find ourselves overwhelmed and unprepared, which is why when we build out our budget, AKA our financial plan, we're gonna get ahead of it. We're going to look at those annual expenses, we're going to divide by 12, and we're gonna make sure that we know exactly what we need to save every single month for this annual bill. So this might be something such as your property taxes or your insurance premium or maybe your kids' tuition for school. You have to figure out what are those costs that come around once a year, and I'm sure you're going to know them off the top of your head because they always shock you. You always dread getting that letter in the mail. Guess what? Once you build this financial plan, that feeling of dread is going to disappear because we're going to be proactive about it. One of the things you're going to find about becoming financially savvy is you're no longer going to be reactive to your financials. You're going to be proactive. And that's why our final step in creating our financial plan is to make sure that we calculate our annual bills, divide by 12, and determine what we need. So now we have calculated our monthly income. We've calculated our monthly fixed expenses, our monthly variable expenses, our monthly discretionary expenses, and we've also calculated our debt payments that we owe each month and the annual payments that we need to save for each month. Once you have all of these, you are able to take your monthly income and deduct each of those expense categories. And this is where the fun part comes in. Once you run this equation, you are going to have a balance that's left. Now, before you say, no, I don't, I hear you. Some of you are going to run this equation and you're not going to have anything left. You probably might find yourself in the negative. Here's what I want you to do, because I already know this is going to be a question. If you take your monthly income minus your fixed expenses, variable expenses, discretionary expenses, debt expenses, and annual expenses, and you determine that you're upside down, you're in the negative, I want you to tackle your discretionary spending. That is the absolute first thing I want you to look at. What can you adjust? Remember, our discretionary spending gives us power, gives us control. That is the first place I want you to start. The second place I want you to start is your debt. A lot of times we're able to work with various debt agencies to help us refinance that and lower our monthly payment. So it's always worth looking into your debt and figuring it out. Now, if you are finding your discretionary spending is not high and your debt is not high, then what I'd like you to do is look at the category that is the highest for you and then work really hard within that category to figure out what you have to do. Now, I'm going to tell you, this isn't easy. If you hit discretionary, it's the easiest you can do. If you hit debt, it's harder. But if you get to the variable and fixed expenses, and that is where your challenge is, it's going to be more difficult. And I will warn you, that is when you're going to run into lifestyle changes. That is when you may need to say, I need to get a different car or I need to get a different cell phone. That's when you're going to have to make some tough decisions. But for most of you, we're going to find our problem lies within our discretionary spending. So once you go through this process and you determine that you do have money left over, you are ready to start allocating that money. Remember what we said in the beginning. Our dollars are little soldiers. They all need a plan, okay? We don't just make money to make money. We make money for a reason. Each one of those dollars serves a purpose. So once you've finished calculating all of this and you have money left over, I want you to start thinking about the best way to allocate it. And here's what we're gonna do. Step one is to build an emergency fund. I want you to aim for 3 to 6 months in this account. And what we're going to do is we're going to calculate your fixed expenses and your variable expenses. Those are the two expenses that I want you to add together and multiply by 3 or by 6. If you can do 6, that is amazing, but I want you to have a minimum of 3. You are going to work with the funds that are left over each month to start building an emergency fund. This is how you're going to get that security that you need. I cannot tell you the peace of mind you are going to have once you build out your emergency fund. Now, as we always say, this is about progress, not perfection. So if you have a plan to contribute $50 a month into your emergency fund and something comes up and you're not able to do it one month, I don't want you to beat yourself up, because when we beat ourselves up and we get really negative, we throw in the towel. You can't afford to throw in the towel. Your first goal is going to be to get 3 to 6 months of fixed and variable expenses saved in a savings account. Now, I'm always going to recommend to you that you put this money into a high yield savings account so that you can make your money work for you. And we'll talk more about that in an upcoming episode. Now, once you have your emergency fund fully funded, you're ready to move on to what I like to call focus funds. Your focus funds are money that you are saving for a very specific goal. It could be a vacation, a new car, maybe a certain home renovation you've been wanting to do, but it is money that you are saving for one very specific goal. So when we set up our focus funds, we've already got all of our monthly expenses sorted out. We've got our emergency fund, and now we are ready to move on to focusing on specific things that we would like to achieve. This is where the fun stuff happens. Building that emergency fund, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not gonna be fun. It's not going to be enjoyable. But the peace of mind it's going to give you is priceless, I promise. So I know that was a lot, getting into all the steps to build a financial plan. So let's dive into your questions so I can better help you. Okay, question number 1 is, how do I balance building my emergency fund with also trying to save for other financial goals such as a vacation? Okay, so the answer is you don't. You do not balance that, okay? This is gonna be another one of those tough reality checks, but the truth is, you're not there yet. We're not gonna save for that vacation until we have our emergency fund. That is number 1. And I'm gonna tell you, not only does your emergency fund give you peace of mind, but here's something else you should know about it. It also gives you choices. If you are someone who's in a situation where you really need to pay for something that was unplanned, guess what? You have that money there. It's not turning your whole world upside down. You are covered. You are okay. It's going to make you more financially peaceful, but also confident. So I cannot express how important it is for you to not skip this step. Once you have the emergency fund, you're going to be able to take your vacation. You're going to be able to save for that new car, but you need to prioritize that emergency fund. All right, moving on to the next question. What are some effective ways to celebrate financial milestones and maintain momentum? Okay, so I love that you're already talking about celebrating, because the truth is, if we don't do that, if we don't take the time to celebrate our victories, we're going to find that we don't want to keep doing this because we're never stopping to smell the roses, so to speak. So here is something that I want you to do. I want you to figure out, what does celebrating look like to you? And then I want you to put a price tag on it. Now, because you are someone super focused on your finances and paying attention to your financial plan, I know that you're going to take one look at the price tag of what celebrating means to you, and you're going to say, heck yes, or heck no. So we want to celebrate within reason. Now, if you are one of those lucky people who celebrating means you stay in, order a pizza, and watch Netflix, great, you are a cheap date, so celebrate away. But if you are someone who truly likes to spend more money than usual when you're celebrating, then here is what I will tell you. That can be your focus fund. Once you have that emergency fund fully funded, you can have anything be in your focus fund. So you might want a celebration focus fund, and your budget for how you celebrate is going to be dictated by what is in that account. Okay, let's go into our last question. Are there common budgeting mistakes to avoid that could potentially derail my financial planning? Yes, there are. So the biggest mistake I see people make when it comes to their financial plan is they do not follow through. Here's what you need to know. What you expect, you must inspect. So when you sit down and go through this entire process we outlined for you today, you have built a financial plan. But if you don't continue to check in with that plan, you are going to fail. So the biggest advice I can give you is to make the plan and then actually stick to it and actually look and say, did I follow through? So what I suggest is creating money meetings. Now, your money meeting can be with yourself or it can be with whoever you share your life with. I want you to literally put it on your calendar, and either once a week or once a month, you are going to look at your financial plan and you're going to look at your actuals. So if your financial plan showed that you should be spending $300 a month on discretionary spending, you're going to pull your bank statement and say, how much did I actually spend? If you spent $350, you didn't follow the plan. It's supposed to be a lifestyle. You have to actually follow the plan. Think about it with dieting. You wouldn't just type up a meal plan and then not actually follow it, right? Because then you wouldn't lose weight. You don't lose weight from creating the meal plan. You lose weight from following the meal plan. So I want you to make sure that you have checkpoints to ensure that you are actually following the plan. If you do that, it will help you stay on track, and that is when you're going to see results and you're going to feel your success. So I hope today was helpful, and I want you to remember that a budget or a financial plan isn't about restricting yourself. It's about empowering yourself. It is a tool that gives you control, clarity, and confidence to manage your money more effectively. I want you to stick with it, adjust it as needed, and watch your financial health improve. Thanks for joining me today on Money Matters. Keep pushing, keep planning, and until next time, take care of your money, and I promise you one day it's going to take care of you.